Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we're here for our last and final speech in our communications class, which is a ceremonial speech. Tonight I'll be doing a tribute speech to one of my heroes in this life, Ronald Reagan. How often in a man's life does one come forth that changes the world for the good of all mankind? What do you say to honor this man, especially after all that he's accomplished in this life? What you do is you tell his story over and over and over. Ronald Reagan was born in 1911 in rural Illinois in abject poverty. Like many of his day, he went west to California to seek his fortune. By 1935, at the age of 24, he got a contract with Warner Brothers. By the age of 35, he would be elected unanimously by his peers to be the president of the Screen Actors Guild, which was the union for the actors of that time. Still is today. Okay? During these 5 years is where he would receive a lot of his experience in negotiations, which would serve him well later in life. It was also during these years that his views began to change. Soon time after this, in 1954, he would be tapped by General Electric to do the GE Theater, which would take him all across the United States to 139 GE plants, and he would do a report on GE, but he would also tackle certain issues of the day. Even back then, in 1955, Ronald Reagan spoke out against socialized medicine. Next. In 1966, he was elected the governor of California by the widest margin in history. In 1970, he was also re-elected the governor of California for the second term. He originally ran for president in 1976 upon the encouragement of his friends, but lost that year to Vice President Ford, who then went on to lose to then incoming President Carter. Elected in 1980 by one of the largest margins of victory against an incumbent president, he inherited an economy that was much worse than anything that our current government has now. The conditions were terrible back then. We were worst economy since the Depression. Unemployment was about 11%, interest rates were about 18%, and inflation was about 15%. Gas prices had doubled since the mid-70s. He, though, convinced America that we could be great again. In his first year, many things happened. 2 months into his presidency, there was an assassination attempt upon his life. Miraculously, he survived and went on to be a great president. During his first term, 8 months into the strike, soon after he recovered, there was a strike by the PATCO union. What that means to you is PATCO were the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Union. It was an illegal strike. This was the first major crisis of his presidency and the first time he was challenged. He gave them 48 hours to come back to work because it was illegal for government employees to strike. 17,000 members of that union went on strike, and 48 hours later, 6,000 of them lost their jobs forever because they chose to not come back. It was at this time that America America had to now deal with 6,000 less air traffic controllers, and we changed our entire air traffic control system. Re-elected in 1984, upon the slogan of "It's Morning in America." It was the widest margin in our history. He took 49 states. The only state that he lost was the state of Minnesota, where the former Vice President Mondale came from. 525 electoral votes to 13, the largest landslide in the history of America. Many of his policies defeated communism in our world. I know some of you guys are from Central America, I believe Honduras. Well, in those days, in Nicaragua, the Sandinistas were the communist powers, and we fought a silent war against them. El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, these were areas that he fought. Also, he fought against communism in the Soviet Union, which at those days, there was a Soviet Union. Today, you young kids don't know what it was. But this was when there was a huge barrier to people that were living in Eastern Europe and Russia that under the communist rule. The final thing here during the latter part of his term is he went to the former Brandenburg Gate, which you see here behind me. This was in East Berlin. This was West Germany on this side, East Germany on the other side. And his words were to Mr. Gorbachev, who at the time was the premier of the Soviet Union, Mr. Gorbachev, if you really want prosperity and freedom for your people, tear down this wall. In closing, I just want to spend a little time to recap some of the things that happened during the course of the time that Ronald Reagan served the presidency from 1981 to 1989. A few things that he sought to do was to reduce the tax burden in America. Our tax rates went from about 70% on the high side to 35% on the high side, which brought in a great amount of revenue to the government. He wanted to restore America's honor, to make America a great place in the world again, and he achieved that. And he wanted to restore American leadership, which is another thing that he did as a great leader. Economically, he brought the biggest expansion in the history of our nation. From 1982 to 2007, a period of 25 years, had an unprecedented expansion in the size and scope of our economy. We're yearning for another man like him, but there'll never be another one like him. We know that. But we're yearning for someone that will bring leadership to America again, not another Carter redo. Is he out there, or is she out there? We'll soon see. Thank you.